Welcome back, guys, to another video. Guys, we are back with another exciting AOT reaction. This one comes from the recommendation of Blackla. They have been commenting and giving me stuff in my comment section on a lot of my videos, so I appreciate that. And guys, this is what you do. Let me know if there's things out here that's actually of concern and things that'll be cool with that I can react to, and then we can kind of help each other with that, especially if you guys want to see my take on it. I appreciate you, Blackla, but this comes from them when they're asking me to react to a particular creator known as the Weeb Commander. The Weeb Commander has a pretty interesting video title that kind of sucked me in, even based on what Blackla said about it. But it's basically saying, is Eren correct? And now I'm assuming, just based off of this, since I haven't seen the video, are they saying, is he correct in even doing the rumbling itself? So I'm very interested to know and see what the take is on this. It's a pretty lengthy video. It's about 20 minutes long. So you know how I like to talk. Y'all know that I'm long-winded, but we gonna go ahead and get into it, and we gonna go ahead and see what's going on. But before we do all of that, you already know the deal. Let's get the business out the way. If you like the content that is being produced and being thrown your way, guys, go ahead and feel free to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, that like button. That helps out with the algorithm, and it helps more eyes be seen on the channel so that more people can actually see the videos. So I very much appreciate if you guys can do that for me. Also, guys, if you're really loving it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. That subscribe button does the exact same thing. It helps the channel grow, helps the channel be seen, and more people who are lost in the AOT universe can come and try to find a savior to help them and guide them along the way. So I appreciate you guys for doing those things. Comment down below. Let me know if there's things that you agree with. Let me know, even just based on the content of the video and the title of the video, if you agree. Was Eren correct? Was Eren wrong? Let me know if you guys think that. Last but not least, go ahead and share the content as well as hit the notification bell so you guys are made aware of anything and everything that is being posted on this channel. So without further motherfucking ado, let's get into it. We're going to go ahead and react to this, and we're going to go ahead and see what points are being made. But I can go ahead and shut this shit down right now. Was Eren correct? Abso-fucking-lutely. You goddamn right he was correct. You goddamn motherfucking right he was correct. But I am willing to hear what Weeb Commander has to say about this. So let's get into it.
With the final part of Attack on Titan right around the corner, with part 1 of the final season of part 3 or whatever the hell coming out on March 3rd, conversations revolving around Attack on Titan have re-sparked. People have begun to ask the questions, how do Armin and Mikasa plan on stopping Eren? They began to wonder how strong this Doomsday Titan form is of Eren's. Most importantly, people have found themselves divided on the topic of, is Eren justified? Is Eren, by activating the rumbling to kill everybody outside of Paradise Island, the correct thing to do? Is it morally justified, or is it just a means to an end? And so far as conversation goes in the anime community, this is arguably one of the most interesting ones we've ever had. I'd argue it's the most interesting conversation we've had in anime since Madara's plan to use Infinite Tsukiyomi to give everybody on Earth their own personal heaven became apparent to the reader. And much in the same way as when Infinite Tsukiyomi was revealed, readers are pretty much unilaterally divided, with just as many people believing what Eren is doing is morally just as those who believe it's not. And while I'm absolutely one for having moral or ethical conversations based around topics in anime, one of the more aggravating talking points I've seen revolving around this conversation is that morality is subject to a person's own views. The ethics and morals don't actually exist because whether or not the person believes it ethical or moral is entirely up to the individual. This is dumb and also false. Confusing ethics and morals with personal taste is just inaccurate and also an incredibly dangerous way of thinking. Yes, you of course.
I agree with that. I agree with that. We can't confuse the two. Guys, I know there's gonna be some people in the comment section. God damn, man, you always post that shit early as a motherfucker, man. Let the track breathe, bro. I know y'all are gonna say that. It is only a minute 30 in, but he did make a valid point, so I'm gonna address it. So the point of what he was trying to basically say was that having ethics and morals is actually up to the individual in terms of like not knowing the universal moral code of something or knowing that something is wrong and stuff like that. We innately know right and wrong. If you even just take the time out to even just look back over your life for a moment, you know if you're doing something that's wrong. You'll have a feeling. Everybody does. You'll have this weird feeling of being like, I don't know about this. Something's going to be off. Something's going to make you question what you're doing. That's just being like, is it morally correct? Is it ethical? Is it something, you know what I mean? Like, we know those things. That could be pretty fucking dangerous if you're trying to conflate them and not really go with the correct path of things. Like, it can be. So I absolutely agree with that.
Of course, you're allowed to have your own will or your own thoughts, but ethics and morals are universally agreed upon unspoken human rules, which are usually spoken and written down in laws or religions. The reason that I'm opening this video claiming that that type of ideology is stupid is because I'm not going to finish today's video and say what Eren is doing is entirely subjective and up to you as to whether or not you deem it to be moral and or ethical. Because while there obviously is moral and ethical gray areas, and as society shifts through the times, those gray areas may either get bigger or smaller, there's one area that's never had moral grayness, and that is the taking of somebody else's life. So what I'm trying to say is that I will not be ending this video in an ambiguous fashion. There's not going to be any, well, you know, it's up to you kind of thing. The pros and the cons of what Eren is doing by activating the rumbling. And then by the end of the video, I'm going to give you my stance as to whether or not I believe what he is doing is the correct thing or not. But before we get into any deep philosophical conversations, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And while you guys are at it, if you want to hear not so deep philosophical conversations from me and Danny Mata about everything that happened in anime this week, then I got a podcast for you. Because me and Danny Mata just started a brand new podcast called Otaku's Anonymous, where we break down everything that happened in anime this week. But before we get into all that, guys, today we got to talk about a brand new sponsor to the page, Athletic Greens. Listen, we all know I like to stay in shape. Self-care is incredibly important to me. And a big part
I'm gonna let it play through, guys. I'm gonna let it play through. And the reason I'm gonna let it play through is because I want you guys, even though, like I said, I'm a lot smaller than this guy, I already am liking the quality of the video. So I'm gonna put the video, I'm gonna go ahead and put the link of the video down below.
A day. You mix this one scoop in the provided bottle with a little bit of water, shake like your mama taught you, and drink. And it's that easy. But why drink AG1? Well, I could list off that it gives you an energy and immune system boost, brain function boost, gut health boost, but how about I tell you what it does for me? AG1 increases my energy and endurance. AG1 gives me nutrients and phytonutrients that help me support and sustain my high energy levels. And this helps me both in the gym and while recording content. AG1 achieves this by including key energy players that maintain energy levels, support adrenal health, and work together. Things like vitamin K2, vitamin B12, and beetroot powder keep my energies at an all-time high. On top of that, AG1 helps me with my brain health. Believe it or not, a lot of this job is thinking. AG1 includes a bunch of ingredients that are crucial in keeping high-performing athletes and high-performing content creators like myself in the zone. AG1 includes vital adaptogens that help you recover from burnout and stay focused. It does this by supporting your adrenal health and helping you recover from stressful situations. It achieves this with things like vitamin B6, magnesium, and green tea extract. So what are you guys waiting for?
Vitamin B is
get up to my level and get to drinking AG1. So what are you guys waiting for? Use the link in my pinned comment or my description to get a free year-long subscription to D3K2 and 5 travel packs for free with your first purchase, of course. But guys, you can't put a price on your own health, mental or physical. So morals and ethics. Well, I do wish I could say that everything on earth has a concrete moral or ethical score. Unfortunately, that's not reality. Like I've already stated, sometimes as society changes, things that were once moral are now immoral and vice versa. But that's only so far as human perception. See, I guess in order to make this video as clear to you as possible, I don't believe ethics and morals genuinely apply to the human psyche, because the human psyche is subject to change and it's fickle. I actually believe that morals and values have been tied into humanity since we walked on all fours, and that the morals and ethics developed by our bestial selves are probably the best representation of what they actually should be in society. See, the true problem with consciousness is that you can think of a lot of things, and as people begin to think of things, people become divided on said things. But when it really genuinely boils down to it, I don't believe morals should come from here, but from here. Take, for example, marijuana products. Marijuana products are a great
Look, guys, I'm telling you, I haven't even seen this video, but I just mentioned it in the beginning. Y'all know I just mentioned it. That's what I'm saying. You innately have a feeling of something that is immoral or something that is not right. Like, you have this feeling. Everybody does, where you're like, whoa, this is crazy. But this goes into exactly what was going on in chapter 131, right? He morally knew what he was doing was wrong. Eren knew, like, hey, this is fucking crazy that I'm even considering to do this. But then what he was trying to do was justify it by saying, but I just can't accept my home, my island, my people to just die the fuck off. That's not a final chapter I can accept. He was fighting with himself. That's why he was fighting with the morality of everything. You know what I mean? So let's keep going. I'm liking this.
Great example of what somebody would point at and say, well, the moral perception of marijuana over the last 50 or so years has greatly changed. Within the confines of my argument, it hasn't, because consuming a marijuana product in a safe environment where you're not a risk to anyone has never been morally incorrect. Though the public perception of some groups and some people may have perceived this as morally unjust, my perception and a lot of people's perception of morals and ethics is so long as it doesn't hurt other people, it is morally just. However, if you were hypothetically to take an edible and then get behind the wheel, that is morally unjust, as your altered perception of reality puts you at a greater risk of getting in a car accident and hurting somebody else. Another great example of this is something like same-sex marriage, or even just same-sex relationships. See, same-sex relationships in ancient Greece and ancient Rome were very common. And outside of that, we also see same-sex relationships in animals who aren't humans, telling us that it doesn't require sentience to a human level to find the same sex as a mate. However, as human perception and psyche changed throughout the times with the rise of things like Christianity, same-sex marriage became what some would believe as morally unjust. But it never was, because once again, very simple rule of the fact that you choosing the same sex as your mate does not injure anyone around you, or not around you for that matter. Moral and ethical choices avoid conflict and avoid harm.
So Nick, what happens in circumstances where, let's say, somebody's pointing a gun at me?
Would the morally correct thing be to simply let them shoot me? Or would I be justified ethically or morally to fire back? Well, for that, once again, we have to ask the question of what would our bestial self do? And the answer is self-defense. There's a reason that almost every country on Earth has self-defense laws. If somebody aggresses against you, you can aggress back, which segues us perfectly into this conversation about Eren. First, I want to open up with the pros of Eren activating the rumbling. The first of which, and arguably the most important pro of Eren activating the rumbling, is that it guarantees that no outside force will ever launch a war on Eldia. That is to say that by Eren eradicating every single person outside of Paradise Island, nobody will ever launch an external war into Paradise. Which is exactly what Eren is trying to achieve. Eren, in essence, by activating the rumbling, is guaranteeing Paradise's island safety from the outside world. Keep a mental tab on the fact that I keep saying the outside world. And the second most important pro when talking about Eren activating the rumbling is that when given the choice between his loved ones and those who hated his loved ones, he decided to let those who hated his loved ones die. You could say this is an act of self-preservation, but that's complicated, mostly based off the circumstances, which we'll obviously talk about more later. So in essence, Eren is eliminating an enemy force that may or may not be threatening his loved ones, thus guaranteeing the safety of Paradise Island.
Correct. So what basically is happening is, again, and I'm gonna go a little bit kind of more into it, is that Eren, we were never given the stat sheet, if you will, of Eren's abilities. So what I mean by that and what I'm getting at is that we never were able to determine if Eren was able to pick out and weed out the good Eldians and the Eldians that would agree with him, and pluck them out of obscurity and put them over here on the island and say, all right, guys, so you're good. He doesn't have that ability. So since him not having that ability is one of those things to where it goes to the whole cliche saying of one apple spoils the whole bunch. If there are evil people and morally evil people scattered throughout the Eldians, for instance, Reiner's mom was all for going over there and doing this. They were told the truth. These people they were told the truth in a way, but they were painted out to be like, hey, these people are devils and da 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 da, right? So she and them were under the impression that they were doing good, when in actuality, they were only really perpetuating the continued cycle of hatred, if you will. Shout out to Naruto. They were constantly perpetuating that cycle by agreeing with the terms of that the island was just this worse off place in this desolate demon city or whatever. So they went over there to try to stop it, and they were made out to be heroes, honorary Marleyans, if you will. Eren could not determine or even dictate that to say, okay, well, you're good, you're good, you're good. All right, you guys stand to the side while I go ahead and just trample everything else. He couldn't do that. So this is why he had that conversation with himself in chapter 131, where he was stating and trying to basically fight with himself, saying, hey, what am I doing? Why am I trying to save Ramsay? These people, I'm going to be responsible for this. This is going to be terrible. There's innocent people here. He saw the couple walking. He saw the wife and the husband walking, expecting a baby, and he immediately thought of his birth and his mom, and even asked the question, what would my mom think? So clearly he was already having that dilemma, because those people there were going to die. That child, that baby was going to die, right? And he was the one who was going to do it. He had to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice the many to save the few, because of the simple fact that I can't live with the fact that my place, my home, is going to be torn asunder because of something that we had no control over. So, let's continue.
And for all intents and purposes, it's what he believes to be correct. It may even be what he believes to be morally and or ethically correct. But before we talk about Eren's perception, we have to talk about the cons of activating the rumbling. And on the side of the cons, the most prominent thing said is that genocide is never the option. This is to say that regardless of the situation, eradicating an entire group of people is never the choice. The con side of the argument would tell you that a preemptive genocide to stop a possible genocide is still very much a genocide. In fact, it's an aggressor genocide. The best way to explain this first point in the con is to simplify it. Imagine you're in a relationship and you think, not know, but think that your significant other is cheating on you. Therefore, instead of confronting them about this possible problem that you might have in your relationship, you decide to go out and cheat on them. You may perceive it as getting even, but in reality, you're operating based off an assumption. And now the only concrete thing that's happened is you've cheated on your significant other. Now imagine you could see the future and also the past and also the present on a million screens simultaneously. This is how the Founding Titan sees existence. You see, the Founding Titan and those who control the Founding Titan have the ability to see the past, present, and future simultaneously. Because, and I've said this in previous AOT videos, the timeline in Attack on Titan is not linear. It's a circle where everything that's ever happened is happening and will happen is happening concurrently. And the Founding Titan is able to cast their consciousness into any of those slices of the circle. Now, obviously, mastery over something like this as a human who sees time linearly takes a lot of time, and nobody's actually ever truly mastered it. Because of this, those who have inherited the Founding Titan are said to be incredibly spacey, because while their body may be in what you perceive to be the present, they're existing in all timelines simultaneously. So one of the other possible cons when talking about Eren activating the rumbling is the fact that he should know how it ends. I'm not saying that he does, or even that there's a high possibility that he does, but there is a possibility. But even prior to Eren acquiring the Founding Titan, he still made a couple of decisions that look not so great. See, even before Eren acquired the ability to control the Founding Titan by breaking Ymir out of her chains, he had made the decision to exclude the likes of Armin and Mikasa and Coney and Sasha from his Jaegerist plans, choosing instead to recruit the likes of Flock and a couple of other people. And this is because Eren understood that those closest to him would not support this plan. This is why he had to basically force all of these friends to come save him when he invaded Marley by himself. This is why Levi and Hanji and basically everybody else was so pissed off at it, because the plan for Eldia was not to invade Marley. He made that happen. But since Eren had essentially forced the hand of Eldia to invade Marley, hundreds, if not thousands of Eldians died, one of which being Sasha.
Oh, oh my God! Oh!
Ironically, being incredibly counterintuitive.
It's not funny, but that was good editing. I'll just say that. It's not funny, but it was good editing. Like,
To what Eren is supposedly trying to accomplish. And once again, somebody could argue that this invasion into Marley was necessary in order for Eren to acquire the powers of the Warhammer Titan and a couple of other important things. But when the goal is to save Eldians, forcing Eldians into war is a weird move. On top of this, like I stated earlier, Eren understood that Mikasa and Armin and Coney and Sasha would not support his Jaegerist plans, which is why when the Jaegerists took over, he locked all of them up, which means that Eren fully understands that even within the Eldians, there is a dichotomy in ideology, with one side of the Eldians being Jaegerists and the other being not Jaegerists, Mikasians, Hanjiites, you get it. And even though at this current time he didn't have the power of the Founding Titan to see that these non-Jaegerists would break out of their jail cell and have to kill their own comrades to catch up with them, by dividing the Eldians down the middle based on whether or not they believed everybody outside of Paradise Island needed to die, Eren has kind of undermined everything he's trying to accomplish. Harken back to earlier in the video when we were talking about external threats, the threats of everybody outside of Paradise Island, those who aren't the subjects of Ymir. Eren, by hatching the Jaegerist plan, was completely aware that it would split Eldia down the middle, which would possibly and did give rise to internal conflict, causing those who are once Eren's friends to have to cut down other Eldians, once again putting Eldians in danger. And every drop of blood that Mikasa or Armin or anybody fighting against the Jaegerists sheds is on Eren's hands. And there's a saying that you're only good as the company you keep. So by Eren ditching those who have now become the pseudo main characters of Attack on Titan because of their stances that genocide is never the correct thing to do, in order to work with the likes of Flock, who believe that Erwin should have been given the Titan serum just so he could extend his suffering for another 13 or so years, and it begins to become somewhat apparent that Eren might be heading in the wrong direction. Because, and I would like to go back to an earlier point when we talked about the preemptiveness of this genocide. See, if you could 100% guarantee that if Eren wasn't to activate his rumbling, that the entirety of Paradise Island would be killed, then this act of the rumbling is 100% self-defense. But you can't guarantee that. Diplomacy wasn't off the table.
Okay, Weeb Commander. All right. This is where I'm gonna stop it here. Because unless you point out something that I missed, diplomacy was gone. There was no stopping that. Willie Tybur had he had the world leaders. First of all, there in chapter 1, was that 123, 122? One of those chapters that went into the situation where they first went over there to Marley. When they first went over there to Marley, they hooked up with the Osmobito clan to basically kind of espionage their way into a world leader council type thing. Something to kind of help with the acceptance of Eldia, to try to plead their case. Like, hey, we're not bad. We're good. We're cool. We're here, man. There's nothing going on. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to attack. We're not going to do anything. This is where we at. We're just here. We're no threat. This, and that. There were world leaders there. You could pretty much say it was more of a United Nations style type meeting. That United Nations style type meeting clearly stated that, hey, the Eldians that are here in Marley, they're cool. They're fine. They're no problem. They haven't done anything. They're straight. But them island motherfuckers, they gotta go. Those guys got to go. We gotta do something about that. We gotta kill that. Or what? We gotta wipe them out, right? That was agreed with applause, right? So they were like, yeah, you damn right, right? So they got super excited about that. That's when Eren left, and that's when he did his whole sabbatical over there and stayed over there and was chilling, right? Then after that, you had them convene all world leaders, all world powers, all of that, world alliance, right? Who basically was having a whole little gathering ceremony with Willie Tybur being the person in charge. He then declared war and was like, yo, we're done. I was born to the world. I don't want to die. We have to go over there and we have to fuck them up. We have to kill them folks. They have to die, right? Everybody, dudes, was crying. These are different races now. These ain't Marleys. This is different races. This is different people from different walks of life. Crying, saying, yeah, hell yeah, let's kill them all. I don't think diplomacy was there, buddy. Unless you tell me that there was some secret page that I missed, there was no more talking. There was no more like, yo, we're going to do this. Hence, the picture of Eren's face smirking with acceptance of this is what we have to do. I guess there's no other choice. No more diplomacy. So, Weeb Commander, I'm enjoying what you're saying thus far. But, unless you tell me of some secret shit I ain't seen, you need to let me know something. Let's go.
And while you can say,
Well, yeah, but Marley was planning another attack on Paradis and trying to get other countries to assist in this attack.
the possibility of a conversation between Paradis in other countries was not 0%. In fact, I argue that a conversation of this sort could have almost been guaranteed to have happened if something like the rumbling was threatened. And now I know what you're saying. You're saying,
Well, threats don't last forever, and the second that the technology of the outside world catches up with Titans, well, bye-bye Paradis.
but think about that statement for a second. You're saying that the second that the technology of the outside world is able to easily kill even the strongest of Titans, that Paradis will go extinct. But why? In essence, you're saying that
I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, what you're doing now, you're hoping. Now I have to cut you off there. You're saying, now what you're saying, you did not give me a guaranteed fact. It's on both sides. So you're right. It is not 100% guarantee, like 100% emphatic guarantee that they couldn't go over and try to find some obscure country or something to travel to try to get the word out, to try to talk to them and try to say, hey, look, we're good, we're this, we're that. But you got to understand, in reality's perspective, that type of likelihood of that happening and the time frame that they had until the World Alliance attacked them, they didn't have that type of time to travel all across the world or to find some petition to try and talk to every country that may not like Marley to try to get to their side, to try to do some type of democracy type situation thing or do some type of diplomatic solution. There was no time for that. So in reality, what you're saying is true. There was not 100% guarantee that they couldn't find some country to go to their side. However, you have to look at it from the timeline that they had. They didn't have a lot of fucking time. So for the world leaders in the World Alliance to gather their fleets and to gather all of that stuff wouldn't have took them no time at all to get over to Paradis while they're trying to sit up here and placate to try to determine if a country or somebody is there. We have to look at it from that standpoint. So again, I agree with you that it's a possibility, but am I willing to put that small probability in over the guarantee of me stopping this? You're talking about a possibility over a guarantee. If I go ahead and wipe these folks out before they attack me, since they already agreed to do it, that's more of a guarantee. Whereas we're talking about a small possibility that I have to find information, gather information on what countries don't like Marley and this, and that, and try to gather them all up into one force and do all this. That's a lot of planning to do when they just had their meeting right there and declared war. You see what I'm saying? So that's my thing. That's my pushback from that.
when the rest of the world is as strong as Paradis Island, they'll all group up together to kill Paradis Island. But at that point, what's the motivation of everybody in the outside world to attack Paradis Island? See, the reason that all the countries on Earth want to come together right now is because they currently don't have the technology to battle against something like the rumbling. This would be like if you threw 2023 America back into the early 1900s. In America in World War I had drones and F-18s and nuclear warheads.
Now, like I said to Rick straight, this is not my argument. My argument has nothing to do with technology and getting to that. So I'm letting him speak on this, but to be honest with you, this is not even a valid argument. Like, he's cutting it up, so he's absolutely right on that. Like, who really cares about the technology thing? My point in contention was what I just made. So, go ahead.
combatants. Of course, in that current moment, the rest of the countries around the world would want to get rid of America because they would at that point have the ability to wipe out the rest of humanity. But think about the world right now. There are 24 countries with nuclear weapons. Weapons stronger than anything even the founding Titan could pull off, because even a small nuclear warhead would wipe Doomsday Titan off the face of the earth. And yet we exist in a somewhat state of peace, because there's no clear, massive, insurmountable gap in power between the countries at the top. It's called mutually assured destruction. So Paradis no longer poses a world-ending threat. Why would the entire world try to attack them? At that point, they would just become France. And I know what you're saying.
Well, Nick, prejudice.
The hatred for the old Eldian Empire will boil up and all of the countries will work together once they reach the Eldians' level of power to wipe them off the face of the earth. And this is absolutely a possibility. And that's where diplomacy comes in. You see, the reason perception hasn't changed about Eldians in hundreds of years is because Eldians shut themselves away for hundreds of years. And all that was left of Eldians were the Eldians in Marley. And the Marleyans were the most historically oppressed by the Eldians. But let's not act like prejudice can't be overcome. Millions of Jews live in Germany. I know, my great aunt was one of them, and she had to flee her small hometown in Austria in the late 1930s. But once again, I hear what you're saying.
Well, yeah, but Marley attacked first.
They sent the Colossal and Armor Titans to recapture the Founding Titan to increase their military strength and get rid of Paradis. To which I say, so did Nagato, so did Obito, so did Vegeta. All characters who, after the main character of their universe decided to close a possible open cycle of hatred, decided to forgive those who had trespassed against them. This is why Pain's ideology didn't work, because giving the entire world pain doesn't end the cycle of hatred, it just spurs it. What Marley did to Paradise Island was unacceptable. But keep in mind, that's what Marley did to Paradise Island. Just Marley. But the rumbling goes beyond the borders of Marley, and it even goes beyond the borders of countries that possibly would have helped Marley. And not only does it go beyond physical borders, but beyond sympathetic borders. It doesn't matter if you believe the subjects of Ymir were good or evil. If you weren't from Paradise Island, you die. It doesn't matter if you're a sympathizer, a hater, or you don't even know what the subjects of Ymir are. Eren's plan kills you. Children, elderly, non-combatants, crushed to death by giant feet because of the actions of 2 or 3 countries. This is no different from the United States deciding that they would drop 2.
I agree with that, but also, again, what I'm going with is that, let's just be real here. We don't know all the world leaders that were there. We know that there were world leaders there. We do know that. We do know, that's why it was called the World Alliance, right? That's why they were called the World Alliance, right? That was what they were called. So there clearly were a whole alliance of people that were there. They didn't verbatimly name them, no, but we can just go in and assume that this was probably the rest of the world, right? That they sent leaders over there. This is what we're going to do. We're going to get together, we're going to group up, and we're going to fight this motherfucker. That's what we're going to do. That's what happened. So we can just go in and assume. Again, we don't know. We're talking in possibilities here. We don't know. But we can assume that this whole speech that he had was more of like a United Nations type meeting, right? Where all the nations, all world leaders all got together. And they all discussed this and agreed unanimously that Paradis has to die, right? So this is why he made that up. This is why he listened. This is why he stayed over there, right? Because if Eren left the first little meeting they had that was at Marley, which was just a group of random leaders, right? Group of random Marleyans saying, no, this is it. He left, right? Then he did not attack until Willie declared war. He didn't attack until Willie said, we need to attack these motherfuckers. And that was on a world stage.
Literal suns on cities stuffed to the gills with non-combatants. And yet people to this day will argue that the nukings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were justified in order to end the World War, as the possible losses of combatants with the continuation of World War II would have exceeded the losses in either of the nukings. We just don't know that. Now, the only concrete thing that we know is that there was children, non-combatants, and elderly, and possibly a lot of combatants that got vaporized one day. You can sit here and speculate and hypothesize that lives were saved in the long run, but you don't know. And what's worse is the people who died as a result of saving these combatants had nothing to do with the war. It was just 2 markings on a map deemed important to the functionality of Japan. Fishermen, dentists, construction workers, gone. And all of this, and I mean all of this, is ignoring one of the most crucial things. Eren, with the power of the Founding Titan, is able to control the anatomy of every single subject of Ymir. Zeke wanted to use this ability to sterilize every subject of Ymir and therefore effectively kill them off in a peaceful way, which is genocide but with a bow on it, as arguably the biggest part of any biological existence is producing progeny. It is the motivation for almost every single living being except for humans, and that's only because some humans are able to overrule the biological want to have children. If the Founding Titan wielder is able to sterilize every subject of Ymir or make them immune to a disease, who's to say it's out of the realm of possibility that the Founding Titan wielder can simply just take away subjects of Ymir's ability to titanize? Who's to say that Eren, as the...
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. However, what my point in contention would be, well, that would go against Eren's ideology. By him discovering that, and by him doing that, it's to a point to where he's looking at it as you are free to do whatever it is that you want. The fact that we can transform into Titans, it wasn't our choice, but we were born with this. So the way Eren looks at things is Eren's view is that since we are born with all the faculties here, anything that I take away or change or alter is now going against the very fabric of you being free. Because this is how you were born. You were born into this world this way. So I see you as this way. So anything that I take away from you that is beyond your power to change or to do this, I feel as though now I'm being the captor. I'm the one that's being your oppressor, because I'm oppressing things and taking things away from you that you have no choice over. So that goes against Eren's ideology, even if it is as simple as just being like, hey, let me just take away Titans, right? I can just take that away. He doesn't want to do that. Hence, why he never took away their Titan form when they were fighting him. Because he said it. You are free to do what you want. I am not going to take away your Titan ability. You are free to stop me. And I am free to keep moving forward. So inevitably, we are going to clash together. That's his whole ideology. So he wasn't going to change or alter anything about them because of the simple fact he wanted them to make their own choices in life. Could they choose to live as Titans and wipe people out? That's your choice. If you want to be a drug dealer and do that, that's your choice. These are what he's looking at. This is his ideology. It's to the point of almost an obsession. Of course, we know this, but that would go against the very ideology that is him and what his makeup is in being free to make your own choices and decisions with all of your faculties without me having to alter anything. This is what you do. You have the choice to do. That is why he never did that.
The wielder of the Founding Titan couldn't anatomically separate Titan DNA from the subjects of Ymir. In actuality, it wouldn't be difficult. Eren has complete and utter control over Ymir, and Ymir makes every single Titan. The second a subject of Ymir titanizes, Ymir gives them a Titan body. Eren could just simply command Ymir to no longer give out Titan bodies. No sterilization, no genocide, just no abilities. It would be as easy as Eren working collaboratively with the likes of Hanji, guaranteeing that Paradise Island gets to a level of technological advancement where they could fight a war using technology, giving them 20 to 30 years to catch up with the rest of the world technologically, all while using the looming threat of the rumbling to keep people off of their island. And then when Paradise Island is to such a level that it can fight its own wars without the use of Titan shifters, just take away your Titan abilities. Prove to the rest of the world that you no longer have Titan abilities, and now you're just an island with a really long wall. Well, I guess the wall's gone, so you're just an island. And sure, at some point or another, you might end up in a war against another nation, but in essence, this plan is exactly denuclearization. Except the problem is the only people with nukes is Paradise. But Eren didn't explore...
But again, as I said, we're now assuming that. We're now assuming that this is the way. This is why a lot of people did not enjoy the ending. Because of the fact that we're making up scenarios that could possibly happen. But the way in which it was written and the way that each chapter was laid out to us was the only inevitable way to end it. Now, if these things were pre-mentioned or there were things in the text that were like, oh, this is a possibility, then yes, I will go along with it for sure, 110%. But the way that it was written and the way things were laid out was like this was the only outcome that he could choose, was to do this, was to do the rumbling. Because of the fact they went in and he decided and tried to do all of this stuff to try to not do it, right? But the way that it was written was that it was an inevitable outcome. So yeah, we can say what ifs, maybes, and could be's, but I mean, that's really not doing anything. You know what I'm saying? So.
Or any of these options. It's a possibility he could have just killed Ymir, and with the lack of the founding Titan, all Titan shifter abilities would have subsided to nothing, making subjects of Ymir or Eldians just regular people, and really no longer on anyone's hit list. You see, because this conversation isn't new. It's gone on for as long as the concept of humans evolving new abilities has existed. The most
But again, I will say, that goes against his ideology. He's not going to, that's what I'm saying. Why would he just all of a sudden just kill Ymir, right? There's no point of him doing that because, again, Eren is not the one who just randomly kills people just because. So his character and who he was already ingrained in the text that we got, in the chapters that we got, in the story that we got. So all of that was already there and all of that was already established. So that is why his character is why these things that you're hypothetically saying could happen is not going to happen, because those go against the very fabric of his character. All of the things that you said go against the very fabric of who he was as a character. So they're not going to change. So like I said, we can say a lot of what ifs and maybes and could be's and possiblies, but that's not going to go and that's not going to change the character that is erenyeager.
Prominent outside example of this conversation is Professor X and Magneto. Professor X represents Hanji and Mikasa and Armin, talented human beings who have received mutant abilities. Mutant abilities that make them arguably stronger or more evolved than regular humans. While Eren is represented by the likes of Magneto, those with superhuman abilities that think with these superhuman abilities that they should rise above all humanity, and that those without superpowers should exist subservient to them. But the irony of this ideology is discrimination. Because Eren, because Magneto have gone through discrimination because of these superpowers they've inherited through no will of their own, they believe that the rest of the world deserves to go through what they've been through. So
that's not true. All right, we're not even gonna do that. They're way too. No, that's an entire misconception of who he was. We're still forgetting that. That is not Eren's character. Eren is nowhere near like Magneto. Nowhere near like Magneto. So that right there is a wrong comparison. You cannot compare the two. You cannot compare the two ideologies at all. Right? Because Eren is not like a Magneto or a Voldemort or somebody like that who thinks that, oh, since I have this Titan ability, I'm better than you. That never was the case. That never was the case. He never was that person. Because if he was that person, again, chapter 131 would have not existed. If he was that person that you're painting him out to be, that was not what he was. He did not. You cannot compare those two. You cannot conflate Magneto and Eren together. Eren is a totally different character base than Magneto was. They're just way totally different. Way totally different.
When threatened with something like genocide, a preemptive genocide is launched. That's never the right choice, because reality is what you make it. Acting on a hypothesis or a perception alters the course of history. And while you may feel as though the actions
it was not a hypothesis,
based on the hypothesis or perception you had, if you act preemptively, You'll never know. So this isn't me saying that war shouldn't happen or big bombs shouldn't be used. This is me saying that the human consciousness is the master of its own individual universe. That's the worst thing about humans. Every single human has the ability to alter the course of human history. And unfortunately, a lot of those decisions are made without exhausting all the other options. The quickest way is often deemed the best way, but that shortcut often cuts out morals. We use drone strikes to try to kill leaders of terrorist groups because we deem it the quickest, most efficient, and safest way. That drone strike ends up killing 3 little kids next door. Now, if you were to send in a highly trained group of soldiers, would they be able to kill that terrorist head and not kill those 3 children? We don't know. The terrorists all could have got away, the soldiers all could have died, and on the way out, the terrorists could have shot those 3 kids. But that doesn't matter because it was our actions that killed those 3 little kids. It's Eren's actions that are killing the entire world. So no, what Eren's doing is not morally justified or ethically correct. In the same way that Thanos snapping away half of the universe was neither morally justified or ethically correct. Thanos, with the ability to wipe away half of the universe, decided to wipe away half of the universe instead of doubling the amount of crops or changing it so that organic matter didn't need as much food to stay alive or any food to stay alive. When it comes to genocide, there is always another option, because if you have the power to wipe an entire group of people off the earth, you have the power to do a whole lot of better ideas. But what do I know? I just grew up to horror stories about Nazis kicking down doors of small villages looking for a finite group of people who practice a certain kind of religion because in the early 1930s, everybody just decided that the Jews are the reason that they lost World War I. Seeing half of a fandom trying to justify a worldwide genocide makes me wildly sad. So if you enjoyed this video, please guys, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Let me just say, Armin is the bomb.
Okay. All right. I will say this. I do appreciate you, Blackla, for recommending the video. The video was very well done, as always. Shout out to you, Weeb Commander, for that context of the videos. Again, very well done. Kudos to you. Again, my thing is I understand where people are coming from when they're saying you're trying to justify and it's morally incorrect of what he's doing and all that stuff. I get that. Don't get me wrong. I totally, completely understand that. But my thing is also the way that the story was written. This is what I go with. I go with the source material and the text that we got. We can, again, as I stated, we can always go with what ifs, maybes, could be's, and possiblies. We can always do that. But that is not what we were given. We were given a story, simply put, of a young man whose memories were erased, who had no idea that there were other people and other humans that existed on the planet. He thought, and he was under the impression, that humanity was about to be annihilated, and all that was left of humanity is what remained within the walls. So after discovering that, all of a sudden, a Titan, in which he thought was the only threat, breaks down the walls, inadvertently gets his mom killed. He gets rage, wanting to kill the Titans. He already had this yearning for freedom because he viewed the walls as oppressive and a cage. So he already had that now stacked on top of the revenge plot of him trying to get kill them because of his mom, and on top of that, trying to get back to the basement that his dad said he would reveal to him that day that the attack happened. He grows up, he becomes all this other stuff. He starts questioning different things of not relying on his own ability and then relying on the ability of his friends, only to discover that sometimes it's best to rely on your choices and not wait for them to make the choice, because the choice that they make may get everybody inadvertently killed when you could just react and act on your own power and own accord. He figured all of this stuff out. They got to the basement only to then realize that, hey, the Titans aren't even the issue. The Titans are not even the problem. The problem is these motherfuckers across the sea that want us dead. The people who cultivated the Titans, who send the Titans over here. This is the real true threat, not the Titans. They are the threat. So then he goes over there. They go over there, try to do something. They try to figure out a different way, try to figure out all of this stuff, only to then figure out that they don't care. They still want you dead. They don't give a fuck about you. Even the world leaders and all leaders combined don't give a shit at all about you. That's why he had those 2 instances to where he was at the meetings to determine whether or not they were able to do some type of diplomacy of anything like that. And the way the timeline was going and the way the way everything was being played out, they didn't really have time to try to, like I said, gather people and gather all of these states and head of states together to try to determine if anybody would come to their side to help them fight against Marley. He had to act then. So by him acting and doing what he did, that was what it was. But it was already set in stone and determined that there was nothing else that they could do because the rest of the world still deemed them as a threat and wanted them dead. That was it. So hence, he activated the rumbling. Again, he does not have the power to pick and choose the good people from the bad people and only trample the bad people. Unfortunately, again, one rotten apple spoils the bunch. So since I can't determine that, unfortunately, these innocent lives of people that are just there, they're going to die too. And the only people that are going to be safe is from the island that I love and the people that are on the island. That is it. And so he could have tried to change their anatomy to take Titans away and do all of that stuff, but he wasn't going to do that because that goes against the ideology of who he was as a character. He wanted freedom. He felt as though if anybody who was born into this world had the freedom and the right to do whatever they wanted to do. So in order for him to try to take away anything or to take away powers, that goes directly against his ideology because of the simple fact that would be deemed as me being the oppressor and me taking something away from you that you didn't ask for. All of those things sound good in theory. All of those things sound well, but the story that I just laid out was the way that it was presented to us. So yes, well, I've already said this. Him doing the rumbling and killing a buttload of folks like that, is that morally wrong? Absolutely. Yes, it's definitely morally wrong. But I look at it from the standpoint of kill or be killed. That's where it boiled down to. That's where the story drove. That is the focal point of where the story headed to, was kill or be killed. Either we stand by and do nothing and be wiped off the face of the planet because the world leaders want us dead, or we attack them. And that's it. What are we going to do? So Eren made the choice to attack and just to go ahead and guarantee the safety of his people. Not a possibility, a guarantee. So again, it was possible that they could have met with other leaders and met with people and did all that stuff. That sounds good in theory. However, what is better? A possibility or a guarantee? Again, was it wrong of him to do it? Yes, it's wrong morally. But I can understand the reasonings as to why. Just like even with what's his name, you can empathize with the reason as to why Thanos decided to wipe out half of humanity, because he understood that resources were finite. That was his whole concept. Resources are finite. The world population and the universe population is growing too much, too soon, too fast for it to maintain sustainability. So this is what we're going to do. Granted, was it morally wrong and was it crazy and was it to the most extreme? Yes, I agree with that. But I can still understand from a writing perspective and empathize with understanding the meaning and the reasonings why. Like, okay, it does make sense, right? It does make sense to do that because you are defending yourself. In Eren's case, you're defending your family, right? I like the video. I think the video was great. I really do. I think it was very well done. Very awesome video. Shout out to you, Weeb Commander. Shout out to you for Blacklift for recommending that one. But yeah. Those are my thoughts on it. Again, guys, you already know the deal. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share the content. There's going to be more to come, as always, as we're ramping up for the release of the final part 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 of Attack on Titan. That's going to be in March. So, yes, y'all keep tuning the fuck in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.